I'm trying to get a sense of, though, of what your policy preferences are. This is a policy-making role. It's a policy-forming role. You had previously said that you thought no mandatory minimums were necessary or appropriate in this context. In light of this data, is that still your position, that you think that no mandatory minimum sentences for these crimes of exploitation against children is appropriate?
If I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed,
I think that's probably a yes or no answer.
Well, what I wanted to say, Senator, is that if I'm confirmed, my obligation as a commissioner is to pass guidelines.
I understand what your role is. I'm looking for a yes or no answer. You're not being confirmed to the bench. I'm not asking you to comment on cases that may come before you. You're being confirmed to a policy-making position, and this is deadly serious policy. So I'd like to know, you've taken a position on this. I want to know if you've changed it. Have you changed your position, yes or no?
I don't have a position on mandatory minimums.
You did have a position in 2013. You signed a letter. I've read it to you now multiple times. Senator Blackburn read it to you. I'm looking for a yes or a no. Have you changed your position, or do you still believe that there shouldn't be mandatory minimums for these kinds of crimes against children?
I believe that there are mandatory minimums.
Should there be mandatory minimums? I know what the facts are. I'm asking you what your view is, and you're not answering me. Are you not going to answer, I gather?
I believe it's really important in entering this position with the Sentencing Commission, if I'm confirmed.
Are there any crimes for which you would support a mandatory minimum? Because you've also said that you think that the commission ought to change the sentencing guidelines to allow judges to depart from mandatory minimums upon considering the various 3553A factors, which would get all mandatory minimums. Is there any crime for which you think a mandatory minimum is appropriate?
Thank you, Senator. My understanding is this body decides whether there are mandatory minimums, and as a commissioner, my job would be to
make recommendations. I'm asking you if you think that there's any crime, rape, for which there ought to be a mandatory minimum, because you said earlier there shouldn't be. I'm astounded by that.
Thank you, Senator. If I'm confirmed, I'd like to make an informed recommendation on that after consulting.
How am I going to make an informed judgment on voting for you if you won't tell me what your positions are? I don't know if you changed them or not. It sounds like you have changed them. You signed a letter. You took very frankly radical policy positions, and now you won't answer me. What am I to draw from that?
Senator, I hope that what you draw is that I'm open to listening to this diverse group.
No, I think what I draw from it is that you don't want to answer my questions, because the positions that you took were radical and frankly, I think wrong. And in light of the dangers that children and people all over this country are facing, I think deeply, deeply wrong-headed. I can't possibly support your nomination. I can't support the nomination of someone who wants to do away with mandatory minimums. I think it's a radical position, and I think, frankly, your nomination is indicative of where this administration is on its soft on crime policies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.